A plane carrying the EU Commission President Ursula von der Leyen was targeted by GPS jamming while trying to land in Bulgaria. A spokesperson has said it's believed the interference was carried out by Russia. The plane landed safely after the pilots used paper maps. Senior international correspondent Melissa Bell has more on this from Paris. So Melissa, good to have you on. What more do we know about what happened here? I mean, pilots reverting and resorting to using paper maps just shows the incredible jamming that occurred here, where the plane systems, essentially the GPS systems, went down.
Froze, that's right. We only found out about this today as a result of the Commission speaking out about it, Eleni, after getting word from Bulgarian authorities that this GPS jamming was, they believe, the work of Moscow. But it happened, of course, on Sunday. This is part of Ursula von der Leyen, Europe's top leader, of course, the Commission President's whistle-stop tour of Eastern Europe, designed specifically to shore up support for Ukraine. On this tour, as she landed in southern Bulgaria, this incident on what was a charter plane, the Commission's also recognized that they don't know whether she herself was specifically targeted or the plane in general, but certainly very concerning. As you say, the pilots having to resort to paper maps to land the plane safely. It did land safely and she was able to carry on with her work. But she pointed out on the tarmac there, after, of course, learning of this incident, but before the rest of the world had learned of it, that there was an urgency that we needed to keep in mind about fighting Russia and continuing to support Ukraine. You can see the images of her landing on Sunday on that airport tarmac in southern Bulgaria safely. But another example, as she said, of the need to keep a very close eye on Russia and to continue fighting.
We are, of course, aware and used to somehow to the threats and intimidations that are a regular component of Russia's hostile behavior. Of course, this will only reinforce even further our unshakable commitment to ramp up defense capabilities and support for Ukraine.
So you see the Commission then speaking up about it. This is exactly what the point she was trying to make, and it couldn't have been more eloquently than her plane being targeted as it was, Eleni.
Yeah, I mean, and incredible here because it just sort of highlights the larger issue with hybrid warfare and the risks that we're seeing playing out in Europe, and that's been going on for years now, but I guess highlighting how bad it could get.
That's right. And I think this is something that we've been hearing a lot about these last few months, last couple of years. In fact, it was NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte who spoke at the beginning of the year about the fact that Europe is not entirely at war, nor is it entirely at peace. Bear in mind that many of these incidents go entirely unreported just because of their sheer numbers. So countries like the Scandinavian countries, the Baltic countries, have long been trying to raise the alarm about the extent of this hybrid warfare that Moscow has been carrying out on their soil. So there have been arson attacks. There has been the cutting of lines, infrastructure cables underwater, and of course these jamming incidents. There are many of them. It was a team in Poland and Germany that looked into a number of these European GPS jamming incidents from June 2024 for 6 months, concluded that it was Moscow behind them and that there were a great deal of them going on all the time. So there is a great deal of urgency about this issue, and I think for those countries who are most affected, so you're talking about NATO's eastern flank, the Baltic countries, the Scandinavian states, they have been very keen to try and point out that what's happening in Ukraine doesn't stay to Ukraine. It is already filtering out way beyond the borders of Ukraine as this destabilization of Europe efforts continue by Moscow. And you've seen they take place in countries that are the strongest proponents of continued support to Ukraine. So perhaps no surprise then that Ursula von der Leyen's plane was targeted even as she carried out this tour of the eastern flank of NATO and of Europe. Eleni.
Melissa Bell, great to have you on. Thank you so much.